Let's see. Try this again. Not sure if y'all could see me. Sorry for all the technical difficulties. This is crazy. Let's see what this is doing. All right, y'all. Hopefully we'll be able to get this going now and get everybody on and set and ready to go. Hey, Wendy. Let's see. Again.
It worked.
There we go.
I
don't know.
have no idea either, because I was on my phone. I kept getting the invitations, but it wouldn't, like, when you go to click on something, it'll have the line underneath it and you can tell that it's like a live. The click wouldn't let me, but
That's
anyway.
crazy.
How are you?
All right, well, you're good. I'm good. We're going to wait a couple seconds because I know Susan Monahan is on, and I know there was one or two other people that were on. So I'm hoping they come back. If not, they'll just catch the recording of this and see what's going on.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so that's strange. It's funny because we purposely ran through this to make sure it was going to work.
Yep.
And you know what? It is what it is.
I know.
All right, so we'll give the other person that was on there, or the other two people that were on there, another second, and then we'll get going.
Sounds good.
But it's funny, it was because normally behind me is a blank wall because I didn't unpack a lot of stuff when we moved, and so I started pulling stuff out and turning the camera so you just didn't see a gray plain wall behind me.
Yeah. Well, one of my lights up there went out, so I was like, I'm gonna be in the calmer lighting today. But
Mood lighting, that's all. But anyway, all right, so we'll go one more minute and then we're going to start. Oh, there's Jack back, and we got Susan. All right, so let's go ahead and start this. I want to kind of give you an introduction of who you are. If anybody doesn't know, this is Wendy Bruce. Wendy was, and I'm going to kind of look down at my notes too. Wendy was a 1992 Olympian. She was on our U.S. Women's Gymnastics team. She was inducted into the USA Gymnastics Reaching Hall of Fame in 2009, and then in 2010, she had the honor of getting the USA Gymnastics National Hall of Fame. And then in 2011, she was inducted into the Broward Sports Hall of Fame. She is a graduate of UCF Code with a psychology degree, and she has her MG certified mental coach. And she's been a lecturer with gymnastics, with swimming, plus she's been a lot of clinics and seminars. So today what we're going to be talking, did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
I don't
know. For me, it's a little glitchy, like your voice. I can see you fine, but sometimes your voice clicks in and out. So I don't know if anybody else is hearing that, but.
Okay. If anybody's having issues with hearing, just kind of chime in on the comment section. Just let me know. But today what I want to talk about is, helping athletes overcome training and performance issues. And that's one of the things that what your business does. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about a little bit your experiences, because we're talking about overcoming training and performance issues, which includes fears, mental blocks, and then also verbal and psychological from their coach. So talk about a little bit mental blocks, fears, possible verbal, physical, psychological that you kind of had to deal with coming to them as a national team member and all of that. And there's one of you talked about in an article with your faults and mental blocks. But so let's kind of talk about that a little bit to give everybody some knowledge of your experience, where you come from with all of this.
Sure. So as a gymnast, I had a lot of different kinds of fears and doubts, and just didn't know kind of what to think about and when to think about it. And we knew, one of my first gyms that I went to, we always we always said positive mental attitude. And so, we would always say that, but I don't think we really truly understood what that truly meant or even how to get that. And so, um, as we're moving up through the different stages of sports, we hit different milestones. We grow, our brain develops. We have different pressures. We have different expectations. And, the physical side of gymnastics also it's risky. It takes a lot of commitment as well. It's a huge mental game. And throughout my career, I think that I didn't know actually at the time. Now when I look back, I think, I had a lot of things going on in my mind all the time. I doubted myself on beam. I had mental blocks on my Tkachev. I absolutely hated vault. And I think, I was still able to make the Olympics with that, but I think that I just thought that was just the way it is. I just didn't like vault. I was scared to do vault. I didn't realize that it was actually the way I was thinking, and some kind of some situations that have happened that I didn't put closure on, like if I balked on something or if I felt really bad, I just kind of try to keep pushing that out of my mind rather than like understand why I fell and how I could make sure that I didn't do that again. Plus, things were a little bit different back then. I think we didn't have a lot of, I didn't anyway, have a lot of, I didn't really know what to think about and what to focus on. And so I didn't know, I kind of chucked a lot of skills. I didn't really have a lot of technique. So I didn't have a lot to fall back on. So I kind of noticed now what happens is that, a lot of the things that I learned, I think one of my like aha moments was, 92 Olympic trials on beam. And as I was looking back, I realized that I had always seen myself the year before the Olympics. I always saw myself as somebody who fell on beam. And if you look, think I fell on beam every single competition or almost every competition, to the point where my coach choreographed a fall. If I fell, like what I would do, I'd walk over to the chalk tray, I'd get some chalk, put on my feet, take a deep breath, get myself together, and then go back up on beam. And thinking that would be a good thing so I wouldn't be upset if I fell, but then didn't realize that what I was actually doing was I was actually anticipating falling, which was setting me up for doing my beam routine carefully so I didn't fall, not setting me up to do my beam routine so I would hit. Two completely different ways of attacking a beam routine. So if you actually watch my beam routine at trials, I remember, I tell this story all the time because I remember going through my beam routine and like, oh, wow, I didn't fall on that. Okay, I didn't fall on that. Ooh, had a little bit balance check. But I'm waiting to know when the time is that I'm going to fall because I had expected a fall. So I do a tour jeté, my hips up a little bit. But when I'm like, this is it. This is the point where I'm going to fall. And so, I let the hip keep going because this is the fall, right? This is the moment that I had choreographed. So, but if you look at my tour jeté in the, on the video, it's not that bad. It's not that crooked. And I had saved way more tour jetés in practice that I'd ever, than were way worse than that. So as I'm, falling or whatever, then I kind of, get ticked off and finish the beam routine. But looking back, I realized that, I had defined myself as somebody who fell and was waiting for the fall. And it happened because I kind of set myself up for that to happen. Now I realize that, what if I just had a different mindset of like, I'm somebody who could save anything because I could save anything in the gym. And so if that moment came and I felt my hip up and I thought, Mom, this is a little off, but I can save anything, I probably would have pulled it back and pulled up at the end. So it's just those little mindset changes that, aren't, drastic. It's just a little shift in thinking that I think could have done, like I could have competed a lot different if I had known that, but I didn't know that then, which is right. Kind of why I do what I do now, is because I want to tell everybody that what I've learned so they don't have to go through that.
And actually that was my next question, is why did you start Get Psych Sports?
I think I started doing a lot of coaching after the Olympics. I coached levels, lots of pre-team, Lower levels started, went up to maybe 8, 9, didn't get very much higher than that. Like the lower level kids. There's so much you can teach them, and it was so fun. But I realized that, there's this one little part of coaching that I felt like I had way more interest in, and that was the mental side. There are phenomenal technicians out there, and but there weren't a lot of mental coaches. And so went back to school later in life, got my degree in psychology, and started really trying to make some connections and get back into it, to be able to teach these athletes, not only in gymnastics, but I do every sport. It's all the same concepts, just different terminology. But I feel like I have so much I can give back to the athletes, and if I can be there for them and help them and mentor them, it's really fulfilling to me.
Excellent. Okay, so talk about a little bit before because I want to kind of really the meat and potatoes of this. I really want to get into some of the things you do and cover, and what they are and how you handle them. But talk to me a little bit first about what you provide, without kind of giving examples. Like, what does your business do, and how do you help athletes? What's your goal when somebody comes?
So, whenever I'm contacted, it's mostly parents, and they're either wanting their kids are having a mental block and they don't know where else to go or what to do. I will say that I'm extremely impressed with parents. These parents these days is that I have so many parents reaching out for resources or advice, and how to help their child. And they're not wanting to do it for them. They're asking like what we can do to help them grow their confidence. And I think that's really, it's really comforting to know that the parents are looking out and believing more into mental training, and believing more into the mind, rather than just yelling or punishing or, doing any of those, crazy parent things or crazy coaching things. But so, the parents usually reach out to me. And so, I always do a free consult, with the parent and the athlete to see, it's kind of like this, where I'm talking to them on, either on Skype or Facebook or, FaceTime, not Facebook. And get to know them a little bit. And I have some questionnaires that we fill out to see where they are, kind of different, the way they answer the questions. They're in different categories. So it's either, the way they answer one question they might be very concerned about social acceptance, or, their attention might be more on the outcome rather than focusing on the process. We work with mindset, so fixed mindset and growth mindset. So there's all these different kinds of, the way they answer the questions really gives me a good understanding of where these athletes are coming from, kind of why they're stuck, where their focus is, where their attention is, their emotional, their emotion control, and then we kind of create the program. Every kid's program is different. And so we meet for about 55 minutes on FaceTime, and I introduce a lot of the topics to them, give them some homework to do, so they apply the homework and the techniques during the week, and the next week we discuss what worked, what didn't work, and adjust the program a little bit more.
Cool, excellent. All right, so let's talk about why. You kind of mentioned why some parents come to you, or why athletes come to you. So let's talk about, give a brief example, and we're going to kind of, there's a list here. So when you answer each one, kind of give an example of where does this fear, mental block, anxiety just come from, and then how are some ways an athlete can overcome them, or how you guide an athlete to overcome them. So obviously the first one is fear's mental block. What is that? Where does it come from, and what are some ways you help get over it?
So you had given me the questions, and it's funny because I think what happens is there's a certain kind of, what I feel like is there's a certain kind of information or knowledge that the athletes need, whether it's the physical knowledge, emotional knowledge, or the mental knowledge. If any one of those knowledges are, they don't have enough knowledge in those three categories, either on, physical knowledge would be they completely have a deep understanding of how to do the skill. And they know that they can do the skill. They have the condition to do the skill, the flexibility, they know how to do the skill. The emotional knowledge is being able to do that skill under pressure, challenge themselves, have that self-confidence. And then the mental knowledge would be, the basic mental tools. So it'd be like the self-talk and the breathing, visualization, like all of that stuff that you read about in all those articles about mental training. So, with those three categories, if any one of those three categories is kind of missing or weak, or they don't, a lot of times they might know the information, but they don't know they know the information. And so, they either get anxious, fearful, anxiety, or mental blocks because they're not sure. And a lot, when these kids are throwing themselves up in the air, the main thing is they want to be safe. They want to be physically safe. They want to make sure that they're not going to hurt themselves. They also want to, physically safe. They want to make sure that they know that they're going to be able to repeat the skill in a competition. Emotionally safe. They want to make sure they're not going to be punished or ridiculed or made fun of, or, they're going to be able to handle, handle failure. These kids, when we were growing up, if we failed, 3 people knew about it, right? If they, and I say fail very loosely, I don't really truly believe in failure, but if they fail, it's all over social media, and everybody knows about it. So they have to be able to handle that. And if they aren't able to handle that kind of failure, then they're probably not going to want to try things. They're not going to feel comfortable. They're going to, maybe they don't have enough self-esteem to be able to handle that. So we teach them how to be able to handle that emotional, that have gained their self-esteem, their confidence, making sure they're not going to be punished, all of that emotional stuff.
I mean, how difficult is it for you, or in these athletes? You can talk to them all you want about, getting over a fear of, falling or spotting. But if they're fearful of the coach, do you, what do you advise the athlete to how to deal with that situation? Because obviously, if you're learning to catch up for the first time, since, we kind of used that skill before, and it's not so much it's beginning fear because it's a new skill, but you're more worried about the coach getting angry or not spotting. Like, how does the athlete deal with that, since it's not so much them, it's more of an outside force, and it's, a person of authority?
If that's the case where where the kid is really scared of the coach, I always ask the parents and the coach. It depends on the age of the kid. If they're in a catch up, hopefully the kid's able to communicate with the coach alone. But I always have the coach or the parent, or the athlete or the parent, talk to the coach and explain what they're feeling. Because if the coach cares and wants to know, wants to actually teach this to Kachev, and then they'll listen to the kid and say, if I'm going to or if I'm going to punish you with 5 rope climbs, if you don't catch this to Kachev, that's not helping. It's actually causing more stress and anxiety, which is actually going to mean that I'm not thinking about catching my Tkachev. I'm now freaking out that I'm going to get 5 rope climbs and then have to do another Tkachev, maybe get another 5 rope climbs, where I should be focusing on where I'm supposed to let go, the sit up, the grab, with the other, the one before I was a little bit late with my, when I released. Then the next one, I want to focus on what it feels like to let go a little bit sooner. But if I'm worried about getting punished, I'm not worried. I'm not focusing on the right thing. So obviously I'm not going to, first of all, I'm not really going to be learning anything, because I'm not learning about the Tkachev. I'm learning about my coach and being punished. But explaining and talking to the coaches, I think, is extremely important, and it has to be the first thing. If if you are with a coach that doesn't want to listen or doesn't believe in it, or just thinks it's all the whatever, that and if the gymnast and the parents still decide to stay at that gym, then we teach them coping techniques. There's a lot of times where we can't control, well, most of the time we can't control what anybody else says or does. We can only control how I react to it. and if a coach is going to punish me for making a mistake, shame on them. But, for the athlete, what we usually teach is that, a coach can't make you do anything. Nobody else can make you do anything. And if you feel like you're in danger, you have the power to walk away. And so knowing that sometimes releases that stress to where it's, I wish the relationship with the coach would be better, but if they don't have that relationship and the coach refuses to, listen to it, then we teach them, if the coach is going to get mad, that's the coach's problem. I can't do anything about it, but what I can do is just kind of look at the coach and smile and nod and then think about my Takacho. So,
right. And I think it's great too, because I think a lot of athletes feel it's their fault. I'm the reason the coach is yelling. It's I'm why the coach is angry. It's my fault. When really it's the coach's issue. It's their problem. It's their response because of their own issue. And
it's why do we even yell as parents? Why do we yell at our kids? We're to the point where we're so frustrated and we don't know what else to do. We don't have the resources. We don't know what else, so we yell. And we get that immediate reaction. The kid looks at us and they're like, wow, mom's mad. I'm going to sit still, right? But we haven't taught them why we need them to sit still. We just yelled at them to sit still and we got an immediate reaction. So coaches understand they can use they can use yelling because they might get an immediate reaction, but they're not teaching anything.
Right.
So, for that, it's not about coach bashing, it's hard to coach. You and I both do it. When we've got, 10 kids in a group, I only have so much, focus and attention that I can have. And, sometimes you just just break down like, okay, I'm done, because it's hard.
Yeah. And it's amazing too, because I look back at my old coaching days when I first started out, that's all I did.
Right.
Is I yelled,
right.
And I was mean, and now, if I go into a gym to coach, I realize that it doesn't get you anywhere. It's more of the positive reinforcement, the positive feedback, and even if a kid's failing, in the aspect that, they're trying, but they're not getting anywhere, just a good, just a pat on the shoulder is all they need.
Yeah.
They don't need the 5 rope climbs because it's not making the situation any better.
Well, and I think sometimes what coaches sometimes forget is that it's a relationship. When you're with an athlete, you have a relationship. And just like you would have a relationship with, a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a daughter or a mother or, even your dog, how are you going to get anybody to react or respond? By being nice. Who's going to want to be in a relationship where you're going to get yelled at and punished for everything you do wrong? If I come home from work and I had a hard day, at work, the last thing I want is my husband to be like, you didn't try hard enough at work. I'd be like, what? I had a hard day. I really just wanted to sit on the couch and watch TV with you and hug you, just be there for me. But it's about relationships. So again, if you're, a coach that's just really harsh to these kids, turn it around. Would you work really hard or want to be there? Would you, as the athlete's sitting there saying, my coach might punish me, but I think I'll try really hard for them. I mean, that's not human nature.
Right.
When you're nice to somebody else, they want to be nice back. And if somebody's being really mean to you, I don't really want to work hard for somebody especially if I don't know if I'm going to get punished or, have a ridiculous conditioning that has nothing to do with my Takachev. But yeah, like you said, I once made a kid run for 30 minutes because she wasn't vaulting well. And I realized afterwards, I apologized. That was bad. That was just me not having enough resources of what I needed to teach you. So I punished you rather than me going home and realizing that, it wasn't her, it was me. And running doesn't really help fix vault if you're just running for half an hour.
Right.
Doesn't help anything. Calories.
Right. Yeah. And learning how to run faster.
Right.
Let's talk about, and I think these next 3 things kind of all fall into the same category, and it's focusing, getting into the zone, competing with confidence, and coping with distractions. And I think they all kind of fall into the same group.
Mm-hmm.
And I laugh because, you watch some of these videos of some of the collegiate teams with a kid on beam, and they have air horns and they're banging things while the athlete is doing her beam routine. So talk about, the reason why they're doing that is, get the athlete focused on get rid of all the outside distractions. So talk about, coping with distractions, keeping confidence, and getting it going. What does that all mean? And how to do that?
So a lot of times, and you ask a kid, what does it mean to focus? And they'll say, pay attention. And I'll say, well, what, pay attention to what? Pay attention to something before you're doing it. And I said, well, that's good, but what about while you're doing it? Because, we always say to the kids, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, but we don't really tell them what to pay attention to. And a lot of times these kids are paying attention. You'll have a kid at school that's paying attention. They're just not paying attention to what you want them to pay attention to, but they're focusing on something. It's just not the thing that's going to be the most helpful. And so we have to actually teach kids what to focus on, how to focus. They're going to be distracted in the middle of focus, how to pull that back, understand that it's completely normal only, really well-trained people in meditation, that meditate can actually do that for a long time. I could probably only focus for maybe 30 seconds before my mind starts to wander and I pull it back. So, we have to train that. We have to train the kids to focus. So what do they focus on? Well, for vault, I was really scared to throw vault. And, I didn't really know, my coach back then, and it was a really new vault, the Yurchenko for me was a very new vault. And we had the little, skinny horse to try to hit, running full speed, going backwards, trying to hit this table, this little tiny space. So, if I was high, my coach would be like, you were high, you need to get in more. Well, that's great, but how do I get in more? We didn't really know that answer very much. I just was really good at vaulting. So I would stand back at the vault runway and I'd just be like, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. Now my coach would be, ask me, are you thinking positive thoughts? And I'm thinking yes, because I'm not asking myself, I'm hoping to die. I'm hoping not to die, but that didn't give me anything. It doesn't give me anything to actually do while I'm running down the vault runway. I'm just hoping not to die. And kids do this all the time. They'll say, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. That doesn't help. And what it actually is doing is it's priming your mind. It's priming yourself to actually think about the negative. Because whenever I hear die, my heart starts to pump. I'm running full speed into something that I might die. That's crazy, right? That's just not a good idea. So but I was focused. I was just focused on not dying. So now you think about it and you say, well, what would have been better? Now, once that thought comes into my head and I was like, don't die. If I try to push it away, it's going to keep coming back. So I have to kind of be like, okay, well, nobody wants to die. That's not a crazy thought. So what do I want to do? Well, I actually want to have really good contact on the table, the horse, ride out my block, nice twist, see the floor, strong landing, big finish. And if I'm telling myself how to do all that next time. So then that's where the mental side, the mental knowledge is like using those cues. So, run strong, nice hurdle, kick my leg over the top, big snap, turn my round up under, nice strong legs, blah, and I kind of like tell myself bit by bit of how to do the Yurchenko. Then what I'm doing is I'm actually, again, now I'm priming myself again for what I want to do, and more importantly, how to do it. It's like a GPS, right? Like we type the GPS into our car, and it tells us step by step, turn by turn with directions. And if we make a mistake, it reroutes. So thinking of it like that, if I was standing back there knowing exactly what I wanted to do and exactly how to do it and focusing on that. Now, as I'm running down the runway, I don't want to be controlling everything. I want to just be I want to give myself a couple cue words or signals, or just to, to kind of stay in that zone. We can only think about one thing at a time. So if we're thinking about what we want to do, generally we're not going to have those negative thoughts come into our mind. So that also is, one part of getting into that zone, right? So the distractions that are going to, like when your mind wanders, there's a lot of those distractions. There's The what ifs. What if I fall? What if I miss my hand? What if I don't make it to nationals? What if somebody's watching me? What if I get a low score? All of those what ifs. There's also, a lot of expectations where, um, you know, I did it before, what I should be able to do it again. And all of those are, distracting thoughts, but they make us emotional. If I'm judging myself, or if I'm doubting myself, or I'm worrying about something, then my fight or flight system is going to kind of kick on a little bit. And so once it kicks on, then I think, gosh, now something must really be wrong, because look, my body's reacting in a really negative way. And it kind of is that cycle where it's just like, I think a negative thought, my body reacts. Then I notice my body reacting, so I keep thinking that like something else is really wrong. So teaching them how to kind of pay attention to that and realize that my body's acting like this because I thought a negative thought. So let's think about what I want to do, and not just kind of staying stuck in that cycle. So,
Yeah.
getting in. So that's coping with distractions. That's trying to get into that zone. That's focus. Like once you kind of know how to manage all of that, and just work on all of that, that's how you kind of, you know the physical information. You're able to, you have that physical, that emotional knowledge. You have the mental knowledge. Then then you can use it and get into the zone when you're getting ready to compete.
And I think the one thing with that, the person, and I don't know why she stands out with this, but Mary Lee Tracy is very big with verbal cues like that,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping her athletes focused.
Mm-hmm.
Because competitions, you'll always hear her tight mind, tight body. And she's saying that as her athlete is competing, tight mind, tight body, straight leg, aggressive, stick, stand tall. So these are all verbal cues that I'm sure that she's not only saying to herself, but she said it to her kids 1,000
Mm-hmm.
times. So instead of saying, "Oh my God, here comes my torsion, hey, I'm gonna fall, my hips are gonna be out," in their heads, instead they're saying straight leg over the top, stick, land.
Right.
So I think she's one that stands out to me that definitely, as a coach, has brought that into her coaching style with her athletes, her athletes' minds focused and task.
And so I didn't I didn't label it like what they were. But so in 92 again, when we had, luckily even though I fell at trials, I was able to make the team, and still, was lucky enough to make the team. So when we went over to France, we were training, and I was still falling on beam, and Muriel Grossfeld had come up to me, and she asked me, like, what are you thinking about? And I said, well, I'm thinking about not falling. And so she was the one who had me train a mental routine with my physical routine. And there was one part, I think Jodeci, remember that group Jodeci? So there was one part on it. And so I sang a part of a song, like one of their songs during my routine. And so like, if you watch my routine from Olympic trials to the Olympics, my Olympic trials routine, I was trying not to fall. The routine in the Olympics, I was performing to hit. And I mean, you look in my eyes, I was focused. I was thinking about like every single step. And again, every single, chin, fingers, shoulders, flick, everything that had, every physical thing that I had, every physical thing I did, I had a mental cue with everything that I did. Again, we didn't have a label to it, but we definitely used mental cues, or, signals. And the purpose of that is, if you fill your mind with the things that you want it to do, then you're not allowing that negativity to come in during the routine, because you have that routine said. I had a really one little girl that I used to work with. She said, I say my mental cues all the time, but it doesn't connect to my body. And I said, well, you can't force yourself just because you're saying it. Mental tools are kind of just like, they're just tools, right? Or visualization, breathe, they're just tools. They're not magic. But if you're not using them, you're not giving yourself the best opportunity to get focused. So, by using the tools, it's going to give you're going to be in the, in a more the positive self-talk and all of that. It puts you in that positive mind frame, but they're not magic. And that's kind of like that other layer too, is that, a lot of these kids know logically what they should be doing, but, there's their heart, is not always convinced that they're going to be, like physically, mentally, or emotionally safe.
Which is actually leads us right into the kind of the next grouping of categories. It's creating a pre-competition plan, training and competing with
Mm-hmm.
purpose. So let's talk about that a little bit. What we have, the athletes who are in, they're training, they're getting over their fears, they're dealing with, self-confidence issues, and they're building, on that foundation to get ready to compete, and building verbal cues, getting consistent. But like, what's the purpose of a pre-competition plan? And then talk about a little bit more, explain what training purpose.
So whenever I ask the athletes what their goal is for the competition, there's a lot of kids that are competing this weekend. And so I was asking them, what are your goals? And I'm so proud of my athletes that I work with, because when I first started working them, it would be like, I want to get a 9.7 on beam and I want to win the competition. And I was like, well, who doesn't? Right? Like those are outcomes that we can't control. But what can we control? Or how do we get a 9.7? Well, I get a 9.7 by having a little amount of deductions. Great. How do I do that? Make sure that, I'm pulling up at my finishes, my chest is over the beam, my legs are straight, toes are pointed. Those are things I can do. And by doing those things, which then goes back to, training, if I'm well trained and I know how to do those things, then I can try to repeat that in competition and then, put myself in a better position to get that outcome, get that 9.7, win the competition. But if I'm focusing on outcome, it's, saying, we talk about the GPS, it's putting that destination into the GPS, but never like putting, make the route to get there. If I just want to go to the beach and I have no idea how to get there, going to the beach is, just a vague, obscure kind of goal. Well, how am I getting to the beach? So, and what am I bringing when I get there? Am I packing my bag? Am I bringing food? Like, am I gassing the car? What's the route? And it's a whole, that whole trip and journey isn't just going to the beach. There's a lot involved in that. So the pre-competition routine is having the kids have a kind of a theme for the whole competition. One little girl this weekend, hers is resilient and openness. And the reason those are her two themes for the competition is that she used to have very strict rituals that she'd have to do before the competition or during warm-ups. And if it didn't work, she'd just think she would have the worst competition. And so hers is openness, that I don't have to have things one way to hit. I'm going to try to be as open as I can during, and just warm up. And if I fall, figure out why I fell. My hip was out. Great. Try to put my hip in during competition. And resilient is she's trying to be like, she was trying to have like no emotion during the entire work, during, the competition, just be very, stoic. And I said, well, we are human and not all emotions are bad. So why do we not want to have emotion? I want you to have emotion. But if you're having negative emotions, I want you just to acknowledge that and see if you can kind of pull yourself back into that more either neutral than positive emotion. So it's not about, having that, just doing the work, but doing the work with passion too. So when we talk about competing with purpose, what would be the purpose of the competition? Well, purpose of a competition for a girl who is competing level 10 for the first year is going to be very different than somebody who's, maybe, trying to throw a Tkachev in a routine for the first time after overcoming a mental block. She's just trying to see if she can, control her emotions, stay focused. That's her purpose. Well, the other girl, she might be trying to hit her, all of her skills and get, win the competition. So we want to make sure that we're focused on our purpose of whatever it is. And again, purpose at the beginning of the season is going to be much different than purpose at the end of the season. Or if I'm putting new skills into my routine, then, my purpose is to, focus on my new skills, trying to remain, still calm and focused and, bring my attention on, not the negative, or if it is, pulling it back, or if I was, really negative before, seeing if I could be less negative this time. I don't have to be perfect, but if I'm less negative every competition, that's good. So the purpose, I think we need to be more process focused, work focused, effort focused rather than outcome. If I have a kid who won the competition but had a terrible attitude and, was just lucky, the coach, just was lucky, but didn't put the work in, that's not as impressive. If you have somebody who was just working really, really hard and, was able to put all the routines together, but maybe got lower scores because they don't have the difficulty yet. So, you know, winning is obviously nice, but teaching a kid all that stuff of how to win and what to focus on and all of that stuff is way more important.
Yeah. And that's one thing too that I try to do is, if I'm a head judge at an event, at a meet, and the kids come over to the table to meet us and they talk to us, I always ask them, hey, how did your last event go? And, some kids are always like, great, wonderful. And some are like, eh. And I'm like, well, you know what? This is a new event, a new start, new beginning. Make it even better.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get them away from that negative mindset and all that stuff that's affect them moving forward, and say, oh, new fresh beginning, let it go, let's move on, because you could just improve even more now.
Right. And that's it's hard because, our society is so outcome based with, looks and money and medals and who's, most likes on Instagram. And it's just those things, they don't, you can't take them with you,
Right.
So what's really important is, being able to believe in yourself, being able to cope with distractions, being able to, understand, if you have a really negative situation, get out of it. We have the power to do that. And those are the things that we want to teach our children.
Right.
We do want to empower our children and our athletes with confidence, with being able to solve their own problems, have a voice, take care of themselves, be independent. Like those are the things that we want to teach our athletes and our children. And we can do that through sport. But, if we're teaching them that, if we're only teaching them that they matter if they win or get a 9.9 or in the top group, then we're kind of at we're doing the opposite,
Right. And that's one thing, as like when I said earlier, my early years of coaching, I wasn't the nice guy, and it's funny that I recognize that now. But, that's one thing that, later in coaching that I would say, as long as you had fun and you tried your best, I can't ask you any more from you. I don't care if you tried your best and you got a gold medal. Woo-hoo.
Right.
You tried your best and you came in last. Woohoo! Because you know what? You tried.
Right.
That's all anybody can. I tried to impress upon them. It's all anybody can ever ask of you. As long as you try, that's all that matters.
Right.
If you don't try and you give up, that's when there's an issue and there's a problem, and I'm going to be upset. But not because of your placement, because that you just didn't care and you didn't try.
But those are things that, again, that we learn. Because again, when we're growing up, we don't know those things either. I think working with these athletes and being on this side of it has been probably the most just educational part of my life, because I've been on all sides. I was the athlete. I'm the parent of an of competitive cheerleaders. I was coach, and now I'm a mental coach. But as a mental coach, I actually, my athletes talk to me about things that happen, things their coaches say, things their parents say, and then how they interpret it and how it affects them. And I think that was kind of the missing piece, that like before, we didn't know how our actions were affecting these kids. So we didn't really know to change, or, I remember when I was very young, I was working with a little girl on beam, and I said, you have to get your hands together, because if your hands aren't like this, your hands are like that, you're going to hit your head and break your neck. Not realizing that was probably not good to say, right? Because no kid's going to be like, wait, I might break my neck doing a back walkover. Well, I'm not doing it. So she went home and told her mom, and her mom came in and told, the boss, and boss came over, and I was just like, I didn't really mean that. and at first it was kind of like a little, a little shot to that ego of like, I was joking, she should get over it. And then I started thinking of it and I was like, it doesn't matter what I think. It mattered what the kid thought. And here I am as a coach telling this kid that if she misses her hands, she might, she'll hit her head and break her neck, which were just, not conscious thoughts. They were just kind of things that rolled off, comments you hear, so you repeat, but you don't really understand the depth of them. And I thought, okay, I will never say that again. But you have to kind of, as a coach too, go through those situations and realize like, again, I'm certainly not perfect and I make mistakes every day, but I think that once we make mistakes, we have to try to fix them. And once we know we've hurt somebody or we've hurt an athlete or they come up to us, I can't tell them, no, I didn't hurt you, because I'm not them. If they're hurt from something I said, and I have some coaches that are like, so I can't say this to them. I can't say this to them. I'm like, not if it could hurt them, because why? Why even try? Why bother? We're working with children. We're developing children. And these children believe our every word. So if I tell them they're going to break their neck, I mean, I'm an Olympian. I'm a coach. She wasn't going to throw a back walkover. And then I realized, well, yeah, because she's scared she's going to break her neck now. And so that stuck in the kid's head. And I realized that every single thing we say as coaches it matters, because it's not what we think, it's not how we think the kid's going to interpret it. It's how the kid interprets it.
Right. And I think that's one key component. This is probably going to sidetrack for a second, but I think that's one key component that is missing with this whole safe sport program that's now out there is, we have all these policies and rules set up, but there's no education behind, and I know I'm speaking to a good person about this, but it's like, where's the coaching lectures? Where's the coaching seminars for the coaches about interacting with athletes and what you say matters and what you should say or how you should say it?
Right.
I think that needs to be something to be considered, because, for you and your job, you can be pounding this stuff out all day with these poor kids, but you now have this third entity that's also trying to battle back,
right,
because they're not in on it. Well, if the coach just made this slight tweak, your job would be so much better with these athletes and they so much more successful for it.
And I think that when we have a great group of coaches. All in all, we have coaches that are extremely committed and they want that knowledge. And so
now, the ones that are the bad eggs are the minority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But the good coaches still are undereducated in this. So, you have, and there's a huge difference. There's the bad coaches that are doing illegal stuff. That's something completely different. And then we have a group of great coaches that they don't know what they need to know because there's nobody saying what they need to know. And so when people do come in and say, we shouldn't be sitting around, doing static stretching for the beginning of warm-ups because it actually, loosens your muscles and relaxes them and doesn't get them, ready for pounding. But we needed somebody or something to explain that information and say, we're now recommending that we do this kind of warm-ups instead. And here are the reasons why, to where it's again, as that culture, we understand that this is the reason why, this is the scientific proof, that not just an opinion, and this is how to implement it. So these are the different warm-ups that we're going to show you. We're going to show you, injury prevention warm-ups, conditioning warm-ups, drills warm-ups, and we're going to show you these different warm-ups that you can use. Because again, telling a coach not to emotionally, abuse their athlete, right now the coaches don't know what that even really means.
Right.
And there's a lot of confusion of why. And it's, if I say to a kid, if one of my kids, if I'm a coach and I say, you should be getting a 9.9 on this floor routine. I don't know why you're not. You're good enough to do that. I feel like I'm motivating the kid. But what the kid hears is, wow, I just keep messing up because I should be getting a 9.9. My coach is disappointed in me, and they're humiliated. Their, self-esteem goes down. And so, but explaining that to some coaches and saying, they're like, well, now I have to coddle the kid. No, I don't want coddling at all. I want, maybe like there's a huge difference between, we call it like coddling and cuddling. Coddling is not letting anything negative happen to the kid at all. As soon as they're hurt, we fix it for them. We always try to save them. Cuddling is like, you messed up, I'll give you a hug, try it again. And there's a huge difference. Like we still want the standards very high. I'm working on having them, instead of perfection, excellence. I still want straight A's. Just not going to yell at you for not getting straight A's. I'm going to figure out what mistakes you're making and how to fix those errors. So it's just a different way of looking through, different way of working with the children, different way of talking to the children. But going back to the emotional abuse, we're first of all, we have to explain to the coaches and teach the coaches why. It's when kids are growing up in a really anxious environment, they're the neurotransmitters are releasing all the stuff they're releasing and the hormones and everything, and it's actually creating brain abnormalities in children. And you can see it. There's MRIs that actually prove that like this kind of environment has, brain abnormalities, which has behavioral components to it. So if there's a scientific reason why we shouldn't be doing that. But we have to explain that to the coaches because I'm sure they don't want to be causing brain abnormalities to children. And a lot of them, because you can't see the brain, a lot of people don't believe things they can't see. So, with the concussions, it took a really long time for people to believe that concussions are brain bruise. So we have to, as a national governing body, we have to take that extra step to teach them that and not just tell them, don't do it, but explain why not to do it. And then give them the resources of other ways they could talk, or even talking to other coaches, even like what we're doing, having like kind of a round table and talking to other coaches about like, I had this situation, what'd you do? So it's and I think coaches want that information because nobody wants to be, stressed and, miserable coaching.
Found a new article, topic to write about now.
Yeah.
Definitely interested in that. So that you and I want to talk to you further about that later. I definitely think that'd be a good article about, how to talk to your kids, but, so with all of that, I just totally lost my train of thought, what I was going to ask you.
Are you going to the next question?
You mean my 8,000 that I sent you?
No, we're almost to the end.
Yeah.
Oh, after retirement, that's a good one too.
Yeah, so let's hit that real quick because I know we're getting towards the end. So let's just talk about, you have a kid who's done here but not here, or here but not here, how to deal with that.
Right. I think one of the hardest things with sports is that the gym becomes our family and our home. The coaches become our family, athletes become our family, our friends, and we become so used to this really intense schedule. We also become very accustomed to a very emotional roller coaster every day. When I retired from gymnastics, I remember missing the highs and the low of every day. When you're a gymnast and you're on beam, and you hit something, you feel it amazing. If you're on beam and you're scared and you overcome it, you feel amazing. But you're this like roller coaster of emotion. And when we retire, we quit, we don't have that. We don't have that anymore. So it's kind of like this emptiness that we feel. The other thing is, if we're going also from, competing and being a part of this team, and then we don't, we've decided that we want to retire from the sport. Because, I hate to say it, but everybody's going to quit. Like, everybody's going to eventually quit gymnastics. Even there's people that do adult gymnastics right now, but eventually they're going to stop too. So everybody's going to eventually stop, right? And so we need to make sure that we help these athletes transition from doing it because they love this sport. And one of the problems is once they don't want to actually compete anymore, they're kind of just, brushed to the side, done, never called, never invited back to the competitions. Like they're not a part of that team anymore. And so these kids have to make this really hard decision of leaving their family. And, I think it's kind of like, maybe the gyms can bring, start programs to bringing the kids back, having coaches, having them train for coaches, because we do need more coaches. So, bringing them back into the gym to keep, growing that, maybe not, turning your nose down when don't want to compete anymore, but maybe they want to do different classes. Not judging them for, if they maybe even like competitive cheerleading. I know that's a wonderful sport for the kids to go in if they don't want to do, 4 events anymore, but they still want to be in a part of a competitive sport. So there's so many different things that we could still like have those kids be involved with our gym and our family and be invited back to competitions so they don't feel like they're just because they're not in the in crowd anymore, they're now out. As parents too, I think you become so accustomed to that life, that gymnastics life, that you do go through a grieving process when it's over. It's kind of the loss of the not you're disappointed that your kid's retiring, but you have this thought of what they might be like in the future. And then when that's gone, not that it's a bad thing, but you do have to cope with that because it's eventually going to end one day.
Right.
So I think if we don't understand that there are, it's different. It's not like we're just going to this, hobby every once in a while. These kids are spending 20, 25 hours a week at doing gymnastics and training. And it's going to take a little bit of a transitional. I know that there's some, she's going to kill me. Teresa Kolakowski. She does, I think it's called After the Beam or After the Balance Beam. She does a good transitional program. And she's working on that. And so, us former athletes understand that, and especially the kids that I work with, like transitioning is hard, it's not like you just one day decide to not do it anymore. There's a lot of emotions that go into it. You still watch your friends compete and you're not a part of it anymore. And I think that there's a reason why we all chose gymnastics. And I think that just because we don't want to compete in it anymore doesn't mean we should lose gymnastics.
Agreed. Well, that's one of the reasons why I went into judging.
Right.
When I left, it's just that break was too much for me. I needed to be involved in some other way.
Yep.
And for me, it was judging.
Right.
So about real quick, yes, they can if a coach, athlete, parent want help in any one of the areas, if they can directly, contact you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to your website in the comment section of this, so that if anybody has more further questions or wants to talk to you further, they know how to contact you. But talk about a little bit some of the other resources that you have, like books.
So I have a book available on Amazon. It's called Breaking Through a Mental Block. It's a workbook that they can use. It's pretty. The feedback I get is that I talk to the kid in a way that not completely, but I do deeply understand what they're going through and have them know that, it's easy to read. I've had kids as young as 9 work through it on their own. So I try to, but it's not babyish, so older kids can use it as well. I have a book. I'm actually updating. I do have a coach's lesson plan called Headstrong. Oh gosh, my mind just blanked. Anyway, I think it's Headstrong, but it's a coach's lesson plan. It's weekly, and so we do a mental training session every week. I've read the idea there is that I was trying to train the coaches to implement mental training in their physical training, because I eventually would love for every coach to be equipped with all the mental knowledge that they need, to be able to work with their athletes. So, I mean, that would be the ultimate is I don't have a job anymore, right? So, but I've been reading a lot of books this year, and so I've learned a lot of extra stuff that I'm trying to implement. Like, so I'm creating a new edition with that, so it's taking a little bit longer than I anticipated because every time I rewrite something, I'm like, ooh, I want to do this again. So I'm almost rewriting the whole book. I have a gymnastics journal. That's available on Amazon as well, and I think that's all. I have a cheerleading book called or mentally strong, mentally tough, physically strong, something like that. Why can't I come up with my words today? It's late.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's called Physically Strong, Mentally Tough, and that's a workbook as well. I finished that last year, but I'm actually, like I said, I'm redoing all of them because I've learned so much. This is another thing about coaches too. Like I learned so much after I wrote the book that I'm changing some of the stuff and making it new because, there's new research that comes out all the time and people with really great ideas and, with different ways of looking at things. So I'm trying to update those books this year, but they're all available on Amazon.
Cool, great. Well, thank you so much. I know just from talking to you tonight, even though I'm not really coaching anymore, I know some of this stuff I'm moving back into my personal life with my 2.5-year-old and my husband.
I have a great book for you. I think it's called. It's not my book, but I bought this. Can you see it?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep.
And I'm going to buy it for you because it's brilliant. It helps you like talk to your kids and like talk to them in a way that's not coddling, but teaches them how to solve their own problems. It's awesome. So I'm going to send it to you.
Well, come to UCF for your meeting. We'll go out to lunch.
Yeah. Oh, this is awesome. I love this book. Yeah. It's called The Whole Brain Child. It's not by me. It's by Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. It's mind-blowing awesome. So
nice.
Yeah,
definitely. I'm game for learning more on how to deal with my kids. So
well, every time I read it,
like, nobody teaches you how to be a parent. So
this guy does. But I just think about like just changing little words like from the kid to athlete. Like if we could just read this as and maybe he can watch this and then change it to a coaching book. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Well, my battery on my phone's about to die. So
all right, I'll see you soon.
Thank you so
much. Okay.
I really appreciate it. I will put in the comment section a link to your website so everybody that's watching or who will watch this in the future will know how to get in contact with you.
Absolutely.
And have a wonderful night.
You too. Good night. Bye.
Bye.